Elaine Wynn, thank you so much for joining us today at the Forbes 400 Summit on Philanthropy. You've been very involved in education, and I just have to ask you, why education? Why that of the causes out there?
It was sort of an outgrowth of a local situation at home where we lived, and we were building our company and being concerned about employees and their families and the quality of education that they were getting. You know, so many things have to do with quality of life when you're living in a city, that those things are apparent to you more than perhaps global challenges. And it started many, many years, and it's evolved into a place where now I am the president of the State Board of Education in Nevada. So it's a way to impact, I think, the greatest number of people in your own environment, and then hopefully that can radiate out into greater environments.
We hear a lot about the problems with education across the U.S. What do you think are the biggest problems with education?
Unfortunately, we have a system that sustains poverty.
How do you mean?
It for some reason, and it's obvious, children who come from well-to-do families have many more advantages when it comes to education. They can opt out to go to private schools, or if they're in public schools, they're in neighborhoods where parents demand better quality of teachers, better facilities, and so quite naturally more resources are given to kids who already have plenty of resources. And we've seen that there's a huge discrepancy between haves and have-nots and equity and the correct distribution of resources. So we tend to perpetuate poverty because we can't seem to have an impact on changing the distribution system. And that to me is the saddest thing of all, because we know the only way to impact and change that is through education. And if our system is set to perpetuate itself, it's a real problem.
How do you see wealthy people like yourself being able to affect a change in something like what you were just talking about?
I think by bringing external pressure and forcing innovation. When we discover that there are organizations that exist, like Teach for America, like communities in schools, that are being pushed and run by business people, which many times is considered a dirty word, as though we are a special interest that's not entitled to weigh in on policy. When we have people who have experienced success elsewhere and come forward with perhaps new approaches, the only way to make an impact is to create these organizations and pressure from the outside.
And what's your biggest inspiration?
You mean people or causes?
What was the moment that, you talked about, it was a local cause, but what was the moment that really catalyzed you to say, I need to do something about this?
We had a scholarship program that helped valedictorians and salutatorians get a leg up to going to colleges of their choice. When I realized that the other end of the spectrum existed, with kids who didn't even have an opportunity to think about college because there were so many barriers in their way, it was a transforming moment for me. I thought our efforts have to be channeled to this whole the other area of kids who need to be lifted up and given equal access to opportunities that exist for other children.
And in the time that you've been doing this, what are the real insights you've gleaned about philanthropy and what's effective and what's not?
I think the energy that comes from entrepreneurial philanthropists is what's producing the most success. People tend to be more analytical, and they tend to be more focused on scale. And all of us enjoy seeing individual people have great success. The question is, what's the comparative value? If I'm going to spend a lifetime helping 5 kids succeed or 500,000 succeed, very often I think that entrepreneurs and philanthropists tend to see problem solving in grander scales. And that's what creates the tipping point and ultimate change. They become change agents.
And for folks that are new to the conference this year, folks that are just getting involved with philanthropy for the first time, what would you tell them is the most important thing you've learned?
To be inspired by our peers and to appreciate that they are motivated by the same thing we're all motivated by, and that is, at the heart of it, compassion, and that this is all about humanity and civilization and creating a better world for our own children and grandchildren, and therefore, if we extend that analogy, everyone's children and grandchildren. It's a very real emotion and passion that has to motivate all of us.
The world's problems just seem absolutely intractable. I mean, there are so many things going on all over the place. Can one person really make a difference?
I view this as a big pie. I'm willing to take a slice of the pie and give it all my energy and dedication, as long as my friends and neighbors will take other slices of the pie. And I think all of us working collectively in those areas that we are most passionate about absolutely move the needle and create change and solve problems. We just heard about it this morning in the last 10 minutes. You know, goals are set, objectives are met, and then we move on to the next series of problems that need to be addressed. I am very optimistic.